Welcome back to the Maastricht Science Programme. We went out and asked the public of Maastricht what they would like to know about science. So, on today's episode, we will be discussing a variety of topics around human biology. Before we dive right into it, Christine and I need to get a snack to refuel.
You know, I've always wondered how long this would take to digest.
That's an interesting question. It's interesting that this crosses your mind because the other day when we were asking the public of Maastricht what they wanted to know about science, Bert and his wife were coming back from lunch and he asked me exactly that, how long it would take for his hamburger to be digested.
So, what's the answer?
Digestion of your burger begins with mechanical digestion. Your teeth grind the burger into small pieces and saliva and amylase are added to break down the carbohydrates in the bun. Once the food has been ground up, it moves down your food pipe, scientifically also known as the esophagus. The food then reaches the stomach within 3 to 4 seconds. Just like in many areas of the body, the stomach has its own environment tailored to enable ideal functioning of the digestion. In the stomach we can find mucus, and the environment is very acidic. The acid activates enzymes called peptidases and lipases that turn the protein in the patty and the fat in the mayonnaise into such small particles that they can be digested and absorbed into the body. The acid is also important to kill or degrade anything harmful or bacteria you might have ingested. Another task that the stomach has is to thoroughly mix everything you have chewed up. The stomach, in fact, is a muscle. The end product of all the digestive juices and the paste of food is called chyme. Food can remain up to 2 to 3 hours in the stomach. The food then passes on to the small intestine, here marked in green. The main role of the small intestine is to absorb the nutrients and vitamins in your hamburger into the blood so that they can benefit the body. This happens through further breaking down of the elements of the burger. The small intestine pushes the food forward, whilst the pancreas, marked in pink, and the gallbladder, marked in green, add digestive juices and bile. The food remains in the small intestine for many hours. Fun fact, if you unraveled the small intestine, it could actually be up to 6 meters long, and all of that is carefully wound up in your abdomen. Pretty impressive, hey?
Oh wow, Julia, that is really amazing. So what happens to the burger once it's passed through the small intestine?
Well, the small intestine passes the food on to the large intestine, where, for example, the cellulose in salad is broken down by little organisms such as bacteria because humans are not actually able to do this themselves. Now, one last but very important step happens. The water that was included in the digestive processes and that comes from the food is reabsorbed into the body. This is important to maintain water balances and to stay hydrated, but to also prevent you from having very runny stools such as you would have in diarrhea. So, thank goodness for our large intestine.
Okay, but now back to our original question. How long does the process actually really take?
The food remains the longest in the intestine, and it also depends on what you have eaten. Very fatty foods as well as meat take a long time to be digested, so this can take up to 24 hours, but I estimate that the hamburger you had might take a little less. So, I do still have one last question for you, Christine. As you can see, there's chicken in your burger patty and egg in your mayonnaise. So, to answer one of the most highly anticipated scientific questions, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Good question, Julia. I would have initially thought that the chicken came first because an egg comes from a chicken.
Right, but where does the chicken come from? A chicken hatches out of an egg. So, what if you see it from an evolutionary standpoint? The dinosaurs were constantly evolving, some species coming more and more close to the form of a chicken as we know it today. These creatures were laying eggs, so technically the egg came first and gave birth to the first modern form of a chicken as we know it.
Okay, that makes sense, but if you restate the question and ask what was first, the chicken or the chicken egg, it would be the chicken, right? The concrete chicken egg can only be laid by the first actual chicken as we know it today.
Let's ask Roy Erkens, our evolutionary biologist at Maastricht Science Programme. Maybe he can shed some light.
Definitely.
So this question was actually posed by philosophers in ancient Greek, and it really was mind-boggling to them. But today, if we have an evolutionary view, this is really not a problem. Eggs exist already for 300 to 600 million years, depending on who you ask. Chickens evolved only 60 million years ago. So there's quite a big gap between eggs, which came first, and then chickens. Because not only birds and chickens have eggs, all vertebrates, which are organisms that have spines, lay actually eggs. So this includes fish, it includes amphibians, reptiles, and also mammals. In reptiles, the eggshell evolved, and that is what we typically think of as an egg. And in mammals, this system has slightly changed. We still have eggs, but not in the common sense, because we evolved a system of internal fertilization. Except for the very earliest mammals, like the platypus, the flat-billed organism from Australia. That still lays eggs. So we have an internal system that has evolved to protect and nourish an embryo. In birds, who also evolved from reptiles, namely the dinosaurs, which are basically big reptiles, they have taken this egg strategy to a whole new level. And they have evolved the egg beyond any other group. And that's why we often think of eggs as so connected to birds. And if you look at birds, they have eggs in all kinds of different shapes, sizes, textures and colors. And this egg is really a nice piece of protection of the embryo, because it has everything for the developing small organism. Now, this question, what was first, the chicken or the egg? That's really a no-brainer, because as I just told you, chickens evolved way after eggs were around.
And Adele specifically asked to explain to her what the genome is. So how do these connect? Can you tell us more about it?
Understanding our DNA and the genome is an essential part of human biology. The genome is like a special instruction manual that is unique to every individual on the planet. In other words, the genome is the entire collection of DNA in our cells. It is what makes you and me the people we are. It is the reason I have blue eyes and Julia has dark blonde hair. It might be the reason you are a great runner, but not so great at ball sports.
So can you define DNA for us? Why does it seem so important?
Well, the genome is made up entirely of DNA, and it is indeed important to clarify exactly what DNA is. DNA is short for deoxyribonucleic acid, a molecule that stores information using a code consisting of 4 different letters: A, T, G, and C. These letters are short for adenosine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, and collectively these are called bases. The different order in which these bases occur is responsible for the differences in each individual. The DNA we have is coiled into a double helix. That is further coiled into what we call chromosomes. Each of our cells have 23 pairs of chromosomes, which means we have a total of 46 chromosomes. 23 chromosomes come from our mummy and 23 come from our daddy. These chromosomes are found within the nucleus of all our cells. The DNA found in one cell would be up to 2 meters long if we would uncoil the chromosome. What is even more amazing is that our bodies consist of millions and millions of cells, each of these cells containing DNA. So with that being said, the total length of all our body's DNA would reach over 5,000 times to the moon. Scientists have found that humans are 99.9% genetically identical. So how can it be that we are all so similar, yet all so different? The answer also includes something rather surprising. I'm sure we have all heard our mothers say, "Eat your vegetables and go play outside," a gazillion times. And as much as we would rather like to continue watching the latest episode of Game of Thrones, maybe our mothers have a good reason. In recent years, researchers have found that our environment influences our genetic makeup. Our environment is what contributes to us becoming who we are. This includes whether we eat a balanced diet or not, the amount of exercise we do, whether we smoke and drink, and if we are surrounded by a loving family and loving friends. These are all factors that are capable of changing our DNA by silencing or activating a specific sequence. This field of biology that studies these changes is called epigenetics.
I had Greek in school. I know epi means outside or around, so Considering epigenetics study factors around DNA, and DNA and our cells are so small, how were scientists able to prove these things? Surely these processes can't be seen purely by eye.
Well, actually, researchers first used the behavior of rats to study epigenetics. What they did is they took two different mother rats. The first mother rat was a loving and caring mother, nurturing her child. The second mother was less caring and did not look out for her child that much. As the baby rats became older, their behaviors became similar to that of their moms. When researchers had a closer look into the DNA of the baby rats, they found that the baby rat with a loving mother had a certain gene that was inactive, while the baby with the less caring mother had the exact same gene activated. These changes in the rats were due to the environment that they grew up in. The same applies to us as humans. The environment we grow up in will essentially influence how we develop and what traits we get. Our environment will either activate or silence part of our DNA. These changes also influence our sensitivity to disease and the way we age. Therefore, the next time mom tells you to go outside and play or eat your broccoli, it may be wise to follow her instructions and influence our genomes positively.
Alright, that clarifies a lot. How interesting. Speaking of the way we age, as a last question for today, Vilma, a lovely lady, recently asked if it was possible to take a pill that makes you younger. What do you know about this?
To answer this, we have to take a closer look at the process of aging. Aging is still not fully understood. For some, aging is growing up, and to others it may be growing old. Even though there is no direct scientific definition for aging, we know that it occurs when the internal processes and interactions with the environment, like our diet and exposure to sunlight, cause changes in the function of our body's molecules and cells. Scientists have found a few traits that contribute to the aging of our bodies. One of them is the change in our DNA that we are ready to discuss today. As the years pass, our bodies are exposed to the genetic damage, which means that some DNA sequences may change. Another trait that contributes to our aging is the shortening of our telomeres. Telomeres are protective regions at the end of our chromosomes. With every replication cycle of our cells, the telomeres become shorter. When these telomeres become too short, our cells no longer replicate and they die. Our internal repair mechanism of our cells, another trait that alters as we age, essentially causes our cells to not be repaired correctly and therefore age. In the greater spectrum, aging is when our bodies cannot perform and deliver at the rate it did when we were younger.
Wow, aging sounds really scary.
Definitely.
So, is there really a possibility we can take a pill to stay younger?
Well, it's not all that simple. Although scientists have already been able to genetically modify worms to live 3 times as long, this is something that cannot yet be applied to us as humans, because our genome is far more complex than that of a worm. It is more likely that researchers will first experiment with genetic modification to slow down or revert the process of aging, rather than coming up with some magic pill. Now, you might be wondering what exactly genetic modification is, right? Yep. Well, it is the alteration of a person's DNA in the laboratory. This could simply mean changing one of the bases, A, T, G, or C, or it could mean changing an entire DNA sequence. Seeing that the process of aging has shown to involve changes in our DNA, reverting these changes back to how they were when we were younger could potentially also make us young again.
I'd love to stay 19 forever, but I don't know what my mum and dad would think about it. It is a little unfair towards everyone else, and there must be downsides to it.
Well, that is exactly the problem that we face. There are split opinions on genetic modification. We have all heard the quote, "With great power comes great responsibility."
Christine for president!
And exactly this applies to genetic modification. It gives scientists and researchers incredible responsibility that also creates ethical debate. Aging is a natural process that has been around forever. Everything ages, and aging has many positive sides to it as well. On the other hand, there are diseases such as Werner's syndrome, where young people age a lot quicker. Editing their genome might slow down the process and create a great difference in helping these sick people. Ultimately, we all influence our aging process to a certain extent through regular exercise, eating the broccoli mom gives us, and always wearing sun protection when going outside to maintain good skin. This is essentially what we should all be focusing on the most, looking after our precious bodies.
Yeah. We hope these answers were helpful. Don't forget to stay tuned for more episodes, and thank you so much for watching today. How about you reconsider having a burger next time? And I should probably also ditch the biscuits. Let's make some veggies for dinner and maybe go to the gym, yeah?
Definitely.
Maybe I'll stay 19 forever.
Bye!